The Lifestyle Show, presented by Selina MacKenzie.
Now it's culinary corner time, and I'm delighted to welcome to the show to tell us about his book, Chinese Made Easy, Simple Modern Recipes for Every Day, Kwoklyn Wan. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me. How's the weather over there?
Well, it's beautiful. What's it like in Leicester?
It's a little bit overcast, if I'm completely honest. So not jealous at all.
Bless you. Well, I've got a question for you, because Chinese made easy, even for the best cooks. I can't imagine Chinese being easy. So tell us how.
Well, in general.
Okay, so it's not difficult to make Chinese food. Do we just need a wok?
Yeah, sorry, I didn't quite. I thought you meant why is it so easy? It's like all ingredients and all recipes, really. By the time you've done it once or twice, cooking, it really, once you've got the heat source, it's dead simple. A few tricks, a good wok, and you need to make sure as well. Now, you've got to think with Chinese food, majority of it's stir-fried.
Yes.
Now, I think a lot of problem with people when they're cooking Chinese food is that they throw everything into their wok or frying pan. Now, what happens is that the ingredients cool the metal down, so you're no longer stir frying, you're actually stewing. So that's why you're not really getting the flavors that we're able to achieve sort of like when we're cooking and we're taking our time. So make sure you've got a good wok, keep it nice and hot, and add the ingredients slowly. So therefore, give everything that time to caramelize. That's that extra flavor when we're talking about browning off the meats or browning off the veggies and stuff, the extra sugars that are coming out.
Oh, yes, I like those tips. When you say browning off the meat, is that velveting meat?
So velveting is where we tenderize the meat. So when we tenderize a piece of meat, first of all, you've got to cut it against the grain. So if you think sort of like with a chicken breast or, with a piece of beef or lamb, have a look where the grain's going and shorten those fibers. Now, once we've shortened those fibers, what we can do, we can add things like bicarbonate of soda, which is going to tenderize that meat. We can then use flavorings like soy sauce, oyster sauce, or Shaoxing rice wine, even dry sherry. That's going to give that meat some flavor. Then we've got to think about textures. So what we can do then is add a little bit of corn flour. Now the corn flour is just going to lock in that moisture when we cook the meat. And then finally a little bit of oil. Now you can use sesame oil at this point because we are marinating. And what that does then, again, it just makes sure that meat is really, really tender. And that's the velveting method.
Wow, I'm learning so much already in a few minutes. And what about the favourites that we know and love, like the wontons and the dim sum? Is it quite easy to do them?
Yeah, the dim sum is a bit of you need to be a lot of practice required for dim sum. Now, there are dim sum masters out there, but things like wonton or chow mein or fried rice is dead simple to do at home. The wonton fillings, if you eat meat, a little bit of pork, and quite fatty actually. You want to use a fattier pork, so at least 15-20% fat. Mix it with a little bit of seafood, so some king prawns, some ginger, some spring onions, some sesame oil, a little bit of salt and pepper, and then we wrap that into a wonton skin. We can drop that into boiling water. We don't want to cook the wontons in the soup because what happens is that you will get impurities. So cook the wontons separately and then drop them in the soup after you finish making them.
Right, okay. And I know that there are some vegetarian recipes in there because Chinese food is generally very, very healthy, isn't it?
Yeah, if we look at, proper Chinese cuisine, it's meat, vegetables and carbohydrate. So there's beef and broccoli, chicken and oyster, and chicken and mushroom, and then we've got, a little bit of white rice. So if we cook it at home and we can use a little bit less oil, a little bit less sugar, it is actually a very healthy alternative to your Chinese takeaways. Yeah,
the takeaways, is it monosodium glutamate they put in that's not so healthy?
Yeah, it is still quite widely used. But you probably noticed I've written 7 cookbooks now and I've not used MSG at all in any of the recipes. MSG gives you that silky kind of smooth flavour in the mouth. Okay, it coats the mouth, but it's naturally occurring in soy sauce, in oyster sauce, in seaweed, in fish sauce. So if you learn to season your food properly, we don't need to add an extra chemical, which is MSG, into the dish.
Wow, interesting. And am I right in thinking that in Chinese cuisine, there are actually 8 different cuisines, that there's not just one in China?
You get it's no different from wherever you live in the world, I suppose. So obviously Cantonese cuisine is very much sort of like Hong Kong based. Then you have northern Sichuan cuisine, which is northern based China. So it's just, I suppose it's quite regional.
Yeah.
So it's no different really, sort of like, going over to Wales and having sort of like, Welsh lamb or leeks, going down to Cornwall and we're having like, stargazy pie or Cornish pasty, then heading up to Scotland and we're sort of like, we're eating sort of like haggis. So, it just depends on the region. I would like to say I could name all 8 regions of cuisine, but I can't. So
I won't test you.
Yeah, exactly. Don't. So I'll have to Google it quick. So.
Bless you. And how did you get into cooking?
So Grandad came over in the 50s, late 50s, and opened Leicester's very first Chinese restaurant. Dad then sort of like joined the family kind of trade. So it makes me a 3rd generation. So I've not known a life without a restaurant involved in some description or another, whether that's restaurant or takeaway, actually. So that's kind of like how I got into it.
And you, of course, do have a quite famous brother.
Yeah. We don't want to talk about him, though, do we? So, yeah, he's actually on his way to Leicester now as we speak. He's just jumped in the car.
Is he? We're talking about Kwoklyn Wan, of course.
Yeah, see, you had to mention him.
I
wasn't going to say his name.
I should interview him and say, you've got a famous brother, haven't you, Gok?
Well, this is it.
Exactly.
So, like, he looks after fashion and DJing, and I'll look after the food.
Well, he sort of went rogue, didn't he? Because I suppose your father and your grandfather thought that you were both going to go into the Chinese cooking industry.
To be quite honest with you, all 3 of us, I've got a sister as well, we all went rogue. So I've actually got a kung fu school as well here in Leicester.
Blimey.
I've got kung fu schools. I used to do, I used to run shows at sort of like the big sort of like exhibition centres here in the UK. But I kind of like got back into food about 10 years ago when I thought, well, I've got all this knowledge, I might as well start sharing. And for the last sort of like 20 odd years, I've been teaching people how to punch and kick. And now I teach them how to fry rice, which is all good.
Very different. Well, you're going to teach us not how to fry rice, but how to make sweet vinegar ribs, I believe.
Yeah, this is a really nice 1 wok recipe. Okay. Now, have you ever noticed that when you're cooking meat sometimes, especially ribs, there's impurities as we start cooking? So you get those little bit of nasties though. So what we're going to do, we get some ribs, we're going to drop them in some water, add a little bit of salt and vinegar. We're going to let them soak for about 15 minutes. Now what that does, it just pulls out those impurities. Dry off the ribs after the 15 minutes, then we're going to marinate. We're going to marinate in a little bit of salt, soy sauce, white pepper, rice wine, corn flour and vegetable oil. So there's that velveting technique that we talked about earlier. Okay. Why the ribs are sort of like marinating, we can then get the rest of our ingredients together. So we want some spring onions, we want a little bit of ginger, get your oyster sauce and soy sauce out of the cupboard. Now, one of the ingredients I've used in this particular dish, we use Chinese sweet dried plums, and they're quite sour. If you don't have those, just don't worry about putting them in because it's not one of those ingredients that are readily available, especially where you are in the world and stuff. Now that the ribs have marinated, we're going to fry them off and we're going to make sure that they go nice and golden brown all over. Because we talk about that caramelization. You want to inject as much flavor as we can into those ribs. Remember, we've locked in those juices already with the corn flour and oil. Once those ribs are nice and brown, we're just going to take them out of the wok just for a second while we fry off a little bit of ginger. Now, what we're going to do, we're going to add some sugar. Now, the sugar we want to caramelize. We're looking for that caramelization taste because these are sweet vinegar ribs. But I don't want sweet for the sake of being sweet. I want that caramelized flavor. Throw the ribs back in again. Add in the rest of the ingredients. So we're going to add in now some soy sauce, some water, the dried plums if you can get hold of them, some oyster sauce, a little bit of dark soy sauce. Now, the dark soy sauce is just going to make sure that that sauce is nice and dark and it looks nice. We can throw in some spring onion. The ginger's already in there. A little bit of vinegar, because remember, these are sweet vinegar ribs. Now, the vinegar, the sweet and the sour. So, sweet and sour is a favourite across the world everywhere, I think. So we're just going to try and mimic that. And we're just going to let those ribs then braise for a good 20 minutes, 25 minutes or so until they go really tender. The sauce naturally thickens. And then we want one of those ribs that when we do pop it in the mouth, we pull it out clean as, the bone's going to be clean as anything. And that's how simple my sweet vinegar ribs are.
Oh, don't say that to everyone. That's how simple my sweet and vinegar ribs are.
Well, and you see, this is it. There's a misconception that Chinese food is hard to cook, and it really is.
Yeah.
It's just a little bit of TLC and understanding that caramelization, and we call it wok hei. So wok hei means breath of the wok. So remember, guys, we're stir frying, we're not stewing. Okay, so at the beginning of that cooking phase, we want to try and get those sugars in the ingredients.
Yeah, caramelizing, like you say.
Amazing. That's the one.
Perfect. Well, if our listeners want to buy the book, it is full of over 70 authentic, easy to follow recipes. It's called Chinese Made Easy, Simple Modern Recipes for Every Day, and it's by Kwoklyn Wan, who we're speaking to now. Kwoklyn, if people want to find out more about you, I assume you're on social media?
Yeah, the easiest way to find me actually is go to manwithawok.com. Why man with a wok? Well, I am a man with a wok. And also as well, no one can spell my name, let alone say it properly.
Did I do well? I did practice.
So my name is actually pronounced Kwoklyn.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
No, it's fine. It's fine. You know, I was on TV for 2 years with a particular celebrity. I'm not going to say her name. In 2 years, she still couldn't say my name. And I was on a show every week.
It's Kwoklyn. Kwoklyn?
Kwoklyn, that's the one.
Kwoklyn.
But you know what? Head to manwithawok.com and all my socials. I've got Instagram, I've got Facebook, I've got TikTok, as everybody has these days. And I share a lot of videos, and obviously my YouTube channel as well. We've got a brand new show on there at the moment, which is called Man with a Wok, hence manwithawok.com. And there's 6 episodes where I explore food from Bangkok to Seoul to Tokyo to Sichuan to Hanoi to Singapore. And, it's completely free to watch on my YouTube channel.
We'll be watching that later. Kwoklyn, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you very much for having me.
Bye-bye for now.
Wonderful day in the sun.
You too. Say hi to Gok.
See you later.
Bye.
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 Bye-bye.